What's up everyone, back again with the final episode of the Monotype showcases for this DLC. So I've decided, because of the time of the month, I might as well play some Mono Ghost. It is the final type I need to get done until the DLC drops later this month, when I'll be playing all the types again. So if you do want to see that, or you are interested in Monotypes, definitely subscribe to the channel, like, leave a comment, all that kind of stuff. I really do appreciate it, it really does help. Now with that, we're going to jump straight into the team. So first of all, we have Choice Specs Dragapult. So what Dragapult does is kind of gives me a nice powerful wall breaker on the team, because with Choice Specs it does hit just shy of 450 special attack, which is quite nice, especially paired with its very strong attacks. U-turn is there just to grab momentum, so we can come in on something and they often don't like to stay in, because Dragapult can have so many sets, they often like to scout for what they can do. So with that we can U-turn to grab momentum. Next up we have Fire Blast, and Fire Blast is there to kind of destroy steel types like Ferrothorn, like Caesar, who can give my team a lot of trouble, especially because they will be immune to Toxic, which we will see later in the team and does play a prevalent role. Which brings in the need for Hex. So Hex is 65 base, but that doubles to a whopping 130 if my opponent is under a status effect, which hopefully my team will be able to get quite nicely, because we are running some Toxic users and Toxic spikes on Runa Regis, which, as I said, we'll see later on in the game, in the team preview. So with that, this doubles to a whopping 130 base before stab, boosted by specs. This can be a fantastic wall breaker. And finally, we have Draco Meteor. Draco Meteor kind of serves much the same purpose as Hex, but doesn't require the opponent to be under a status effect to have that level of power. Now unfortunately it does lower my special attack by 2 stages, so after one we generally have to swap out. But it does there to act as a nice wall breaker. Now EV spread wise, we are a max speed timid nature with clear body. So what this lets me do is have great speed control. At 421 speed, it outspeeds a ton of the tier, including Choice Scarf, Dracovish, or anything slower than Choice Scarf Dracovish that is boosted by a Choice Scarf. And with clear body, it prevents us from lowering our speed from things like Sticky Web, which is super important because the team doesn't have much in the line of entry hazard control. So next member of the squad is going to be Gengar. Gengar is going to be my immediate speed control with Choice Scarf, and again a max speed timid nature. It hits very fast levels of speed, outspeeding again a lot of Choice Scarf users in the tier, because not many use Choice Scarf over 110 base speed. There are a few, I'm not saying there's none, but a lot of the time this will outspeed most of the tier. And even with Sticky Webs up, it will still nicely outspeed some slower threats that have lower than 350 speed. And with that, the rest of it is dumped into special attack, because we are a special attacker and Gengar's special attack is very strong. So moveset wise, we have Trick. Trick is there to hopefully kind of stop a stall or walls. We can trick my Choice Scarf onto them for things like Toxapex, Amoonguss, Ferrothorn, anything like that, and immediately just shuts them down, locking them to one move, which does not help them in the long run. Next up, we do have Sludge Wave, because it is very good stab, as well as that Sludge Bomb is blocked by Bulletproof on things like Komodo, so do bear that in mind. It does have a slightly lower poison chance, but at the cost of slightly higher base power, so it is nice to have that raw immediate power, because Gengar will be a late game cleaner, so we do value that a lot. Next up we have Dazzling Gleam, and Dazzling Gleam is really good for dark types, things like Hydreigon. It can hit Bisharp neutrally for quite a bit of damage if they swap in. It can hit even things like Komodo very hard. So the fairy coverage is just quite nice on a dark team, ghost team, sorry, especially for dealing with those dark types. And finally we do have Shadow Ball, which is a backup stab against teams that have like a steel type on them, because they're a Sludge Wave, they'll easily be able to swap into that. So we need the Shadow Ball, which does hit those steel types neutrally. As well as that, it is great against the opposing Mono Ghost matchup if we do come across those, which is quite possible, because other people might have the same idea as me playing Ghost at this time of the year. Next up we have Mimikyu, and Mimikyu is basically going to be my main counter to dark types on the team. Because of its part fairy typing, it can take a dark hit nicely enough. On top of that, its ability Disguise is fantastic for almost guaranteeing you eat a single hit, assuming the opponent isn't running something like Mold Breaker or a multi-hit move. Mimikyu can always eat a hit thanks to disguise and still be able to fight back. So EV spread wise, we are max speed Jolly Nature. 320 speed is quite good. It allows us to outspeed a decent bit of threats in the tier, and the rest is pumped into attack. While the attack stat doesn't look that impressive at 279, it is life orb boosted, so we definitely do have that extra bit of power. On top of that, we have Swords Dance, and we're kind of almost guaranteed to get a Swords Dance off if we want, thanks to disguise. So this 279 attack is essentially over 500 if we so choose to Swords Dance in the first attack. Moveset wise, now we do have Shadow Sneak. Shadow Sneak is a great priority, being able to clean through later teams, especially after a Swords Dance and Life Orb boosted. We can just click stab Shadow Sneak towards the end game and pick off weakened foes. As well as been fantastic against the opposing Ghost matchup because we guaranteed do take a hit thanks to disguise. Next up is Play Rough, and Play Rough is there to be a great Fairy Stab, which is so good against the dark types in the tier, of which there are quite a few, as well as that things like fighting types like Urshifu, who granted is part dark type as well. It is great to be able to hit those super effectively and to do a ton of damage, as well as dragons in the tier, which my team can struggle a bit with. Next up we do have Drain Punch, and Drain Punch is there for longevity. Despite the fact Mimikyu takes damage from its disguise busting and the life orb, the Drain Punch can drain most of that HP back, especially because Mimikyu's HP is quite low at 251, so we will be gaining a good chunk of HP back, especially against things like normal types like Chansey or Blissey. We just gain so much HP back. We block their Seismic Tosses. It's good boosted against Ferrothorn, other steel types as well. So the Drain Punch, Aegislash is a big one. Sorry, not Aegislash, Bisharp is a big one to hit super effectively. 2-1 KO and drain most of our HP back. So that is super important. Next up we have Aegislash, and Aegislash is going to be my next kind of dark counter on the team because it is running a Colbur Berry. So what the Colbur Berry does is weaken dark type hits once. And the reason for this is in shield form, it has a whopping 360 and 317 defense stats respectively. As well as its max HP, it can easily eat up like a Dark Pulse or a Wicked Blow, for example, from things like Urshifu, Hydreigon, a knockoff from Bisharp. And with that, we take that because of our shield form, and then on our turn, we attack and change into sword form, which is where my max attack Adamant Nature comes into play, hitting, I believe, over 400 attack easily. So moveset wise, we have Shadow Sneak again for a bit of priority on the team. It can be great for late game cleaning up because Aegislash is quite strong. We have Sacred Sword, which is good for dealing with steel types like Ferrothorn. Bisharp is a big one, even hitting Urshifu quite hard after a Wicked Blow. I'm not sure if it one-hit KOs off the top of my head. I might have to change this to close combat depending, but the reason I like Sacred Sword is because it does give us that extra bit of longevity because the close combat does lower our defenses. And this also ignores opponent stat changes, so if you are fighting an Iron Defense Body Presser, the Sacred Sword will ignore that and do a good chunk of damage. Next up we have Iron Head, which is great for dealing with fairies in the tier because other than that we don't really have too much of a way for dealing with fairies besides KingKrabz Sludge Bomb. And while they aren't the most difficult matchup, it is just nice to have that stab Iron Head, which can also flinch slower targets, which they're granted there won't be many of because I am running min speed at 156, but they are the occasional wall we can't flinch. And finally we have King's Shield. So King's Shield is really good for changing back, well the only way to change back into my shield form besides swapping out. And what this lets me do is get my defense stats up again through the roof, and if the opponent makes contact, dropping their attack a stage, which gives Aegislash a bit more longevity, which is always quite nice. So next up we have Chandelure, and this Chandelure is going to be quite a weird looking set, I won't deny, but what this lets me do, we're going to go into the EV spread first of all. So the 241 speed allows me to outspeed key threats that are 240 or below, which there are a few of in the tier. For example, Aegislash, some uninvested, like I think 95-ish speed, maybe even 100 speed Pokemon who are uninvested, this should let me outspeed them. The rest is dumped into a special attack with a modest nature, so this thing will hit very, very, very hard, and some HP for a bit of longevity. So what this HP lets me do is guarantee live a +2 Psychic from something like Volcarona, which this team does struggle with, so that is really nice to have that, or I can swap in on the +1. And thanks to my heavy duty boots, I will not be taking damage from spikes. I won't lower my speed from sticky webs. I won't be taking stealth rock chips, so that's all really important. With Infiltrator, we can hit things behind sub because the team can struggle a bit with substitutes. So I'm going to go back to the Volcarona here. It can swap in easily on a +1 psychic and click clear smog and just completely remove this thing's quiver dance boosts. Or this goes for many other special setter-uppers, if that's not a word, but Pokemon want to set up. So what the clear smog let me does is reset their stat changes, which is pretty good, especially behind a substitute. And on top of that, we have Psychic for Toxapex, so the team can struggle a bit with Toxapex, so Psychic is nice for breaking that with my amazing 427 special attack. Next up, we do a Flamethrower, which is really good for the Steel types in the tier. For Grass types, just generally being a very, very strong stab. Coming off my 427 special attack, that is fantastically strong. And finally, we do have Hex. So Hex, much like the Dragapult, is there for to boost off the hopefully poisoned Pokemon, thanks to Runaregis's toxic spikes. So that's going to be Chandelure, and hopefully it will put in some work because it is a somewhat awkward set. And finally, we have Runaregis. So Runaregis is going to be my main lead Pokemon. With a max HP, max defense, impish nature, it can really take a hit. With 427 defense and an okay 319 HP and 248 special attack. So what that lets me do is pass on my Wandering Spirit, as well as taking Rocky Helmet Chip on the opponent if they decide to make contact with me. This is super important against matchups like Conkeldurr, who might be Guts boosted and click Knockoff. So not only do they take damage from my Rocky Helmet, they lose their Guts, essentially forcing them to swap out, otherwise they do suffer half damage from their burn. Now moveset wise, we are running Toxic Spikes, which is great for an entry hazard, so this pairs nicely with the team, because the team is somewhat defensive or preys on status conditions with Hex, or for example Aegislash can King's Shield and slowly stall out the toxic damage. Chandelure pressures the opponent by being able to clear smog them, so they can't just set up in my face and try to reverse sweep me. Next up we have Stealth Rock, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's just great chip for most of the tier. It allows me to break sashes or sturdy, as well as dissuade my opponent from keeping momentum by swapping in and out constantly without having to defog. And what's vitally important in a ghost team is they cannot rapid spin me, because I am an all ghost type, so the rapid spin will fail. So against types like fire types who very often rely on Torkoal to rapid spin the hazards away, they will not be able to, and the Stealth Rock and Toxic Spikes can take their toll on them. Next up we have Body Press. So Body Press is fantastic against dark types because it is super effective, and I do not have to invest anything in my attacking stats at all. Actually, that should be my attack nature to weaken foul play. So the Body Press is fantastic because I do not have to invest at all into any attacking stat for this to be super effective and do tons of damage on the fighting types, while still being able to be a defensive wall. And finally we have Curse. So Curse does seem like a strange choice, but what this lets me do is maybe on a swap in after I pass my Wandering Spirit, the opponent wants to swap in, I can Curse them, which puts them on a timer. As well as that, if they're swapping into a Defogger, for example, and I am below half HP, what this lets me do is actually KO my own Runaregis, put a Curse on them, thus blocking their defog attempt, and allows me to swap into a fast Pokemon like Gengar or Dragapult and hopefully KO them before they can get up the defog, allowing me to keep my entry hazards up in the game, which is quite good. As well as that, it is just great for putting pressure on walls or set up Pokemon who want to try and set up in my face. So that is going to be the team today. I'm going to pause there till I find some games, and hopefully we have some good ones. I'll be right back. So we have a game against Mono fighting, and unfortunately in this game, Urshifu is a huge issue for the team, as it can kind of click Wicked Blow against pretty much everything I have. That said, Runaregis is fantastic for its ability to wall out a lot of what their type has, because obviously they can't use their fighting stab, but he walls out a lot of their physical attacks anyway, with the ability to throw on Toxic Spikes as well. And by the looks of it, they do not seem to have any method of curing hazards, unless maybe Conkeldurr or Hawlucha is D5, which is quite rare, so we don't see that too often. Now, very often, Cobalion exactly do run Taunt, so that is an issue, but here I can just body press it and get a chunk of damage off, so they will feint to this next body press, and I don't think they value staying here against me, so I'll just click it again. And now the Taunt is worn out. Unfortunately, Keldeo can be a big issue for the team, so I definitely have to worry about that, as well as Urshifu. Other than that, I really can wall a lot of their team, especially Conkeldurr. If it is burnt with Guts, as long as they touch my Wandering Spirit, they will lose their Guts ability, thus making them much weaker in the long run. So here is that Keldeo I was talking about, which can be an issue. So I'm going to go into Dragapult, as that did not too much damage, so it's very possible that it's actually Scarfed. I'll try click Draco here in case they do stay in, but I feel they're either Scarf and outspeed me and KO. Actually, that might be Specs. Is that Specs damage? I'm not sure. I have the damage calc up here. I'm actually going to check that quickly, or I'm not, because the turn played through, and it turns out that it was indeed Specs. So that is good to know. So I'm in the position here where I value Mimikyu so much against Urshifu, as well as Aegislash, to be honest, because it does have its Cobra Berry, which means I can weaken its Wicked Blow, and the close combat should finish it off after that turn. So we're going to go for a Shadow Sneak here and hopefully pick up a KO against the Keldeo. And Urshifu comes in. I think I might just live a Wicked Blow thanks to the Cobra Berry, and we'll click Sacred Sword here. We do not. That is very good to know. So that is an important calc to know. However, my Gengar does outspeed, and we can click Dazzling Gleam here, which does pick up a KO on the Urshifu if it stays in. Otherwise, these three mons do take a good chunk of damage. Yeah, they're going to faint. So it's important to keep this Gengar healthy as Hawlucha comes out. I'm going to go into Rune Regis and try get my Toxic Spikes down if possible, as they try to endure the hit. So you can eat my Toxic Spikes here. Terrakion comes out, but that's not a big issue for me, as I should easily eat the Earthquakes, as I am physically defensive. And here, I'll just click Body Press and pick up a KO. Now this kind of forces in, I think, Urshifu, which lets me Toxic, which is super important, and here I can sack the Chandelure, as it has no need for it in this game currently. Now, assuming my Play Rough doesn't miss, this game I think should be mine, as they Wicked Blow. So this thing is an issue. I hope it endures, which will let me either do one click Shadow Sneak or swap into Rune Regis with Rocky Helm. Yeah. So unfortunately for them, they do lose now to a Shadow Sneak. And that's going to be the first game, and we're going to pause till we find our next one. I'll be right back. So we have our next game, and it is against Mono Bug. So in Bug, things like Heracross can actually be quite annoying, especially because it can click Choice Scarf and Knockoff. As well as that, they do have webs, and we will not have a way of removing them, unfortunately. So we can open up Rune Regis, but it does run the risk of them opening up Araquanid and kind of going for Liquidation turn 1, which is exactly what it looks like they're going to go for. But I'm going to click Stealth Rock here, as I should live, and I actually will remove its Water Bubble ability, thanks to my Wandering Spirit, and get Stealth Rocks down, which is fantastic later in the game. So here I think I go Aegislash. I should be able to eat what they throw my way quite nicely. Now unfortunately there's not a whole lot I can do to threaten them, which can be an issue, so I'll just click Ironhead as they swap into Volcarona. We do have Chandelure for this exact moment. So we're going to go into this here. If they Quiver Dance up, I expect to have IVs to be able to live this nicely. So that doesn't worry me one bit. I'm going to click Clear Smog here, in case they do decide to stay in. So that does actually reset their stat boost, and here I would like to click Flamethrower, but unfortunately they can go in Center Scorch, so I'm going to click Hex for neutral damage, as that doesn't do a whole lot of damage, and my Hex is actually very powerful. Now unfortunately it lets them Quiver Dance up again, as they are actually a Roost build, so I think I might replace Psychic here with Toxic to make it slightly easier to deal with things like Volcarona who can Roost. So we'll click Clear Smog again. Unfortunately my Chandelure will die quite early, But as long as I do not let Volcarona set up in my face, it should be okay. Flamethrower does more damage here as they actually stay in and get the special attack raise, unfortunately. So this isn't good for me, and I think I rely on Dragapult here, landing a Draco Meteor. Nice, so I get rid of Volcarona, which is such a huge threat to my team, so that is very much welcomed. As for Caesar, they can easily defog away my hazards, but they do not like touching Regis, both because they take Rocky Helmet Chip and because I remove their Technician ability if they do choose to go for that. So we're going to put down Stealth Rocks again. Okay, I'm going to curse you, so you can go ahead and Swords Dance up all you like. So this curse is quite nice now, as it does put the Caesar on a timer and lets me pivot into my Aegislash nicely enough. I will click Sacred Sword here in case they want to swap, as they actually surprisingly stay in, and they do take a good chunk of damage. I'll King's Shield on the off chance they want to Bullet Punch me, but I think it's the better play for them to swap out in this position. Oh, as they stay in. And they go for a Roost, so this team seems to be running quite a few Roosters, unfortunately. But my Sacred Sword does put a decent bit of pressure on them between that and Curse. Now, unfortunately, the endgame isn't looking too easy, but that does a good chunk of damage and forces them here to Roost if they do want to survive. So I'm going to try and go for a Shadow Sneak, as they actually go for Bullet Punch, and we trade Mons. So this endgame is looking quite difficult, if I'm honest. I did not manage to get my Toxic Spikes up, which is unfortunate, as they go in Scent to Scorch. I don't think my Draco kills here, but I'll try. And they can pretty much just go for a knockoff in this position, as it does a decent chunk. So I will click this again, as now my Dragapult is quite badly hindered. They unfortunately get the KO here, but it lets me take in Gengar and click Shadow Ball. Now, unfortunately, the odds are quite stacked against me fighting Araquanid. I believe between Heracross and Galvantula, they can finish me off. So actually the play there is probably to go into Mimikyu and just click maybe Shadow Sneak. Either way, we pick up a KO here, but this unfortunately invites in Araquanid, who has a lot of special defense, and its Liquidation could easily KO me here. So unfortunately we did not get the Cursed Body, and it looks like this is going to be game, because I do not think a Life Orb hit can one-hit KO either Heracross or Galvantula for that matter. So we do manage to take Araquanid out, but that Heracross is for sure scarfed. Does it KO me? We're going to run a calc here. I'm almost certain it does. Mimikyu Swords Dance versus Heracross. Choice Scarf. Knockoff does 49 to 58, so we should actually just about be able to live that. But does my Shadow Sneak KO at +4? It doesn't look like it's going to. Unfortunately, it does not KO. But I won't have a Life Form, so let's say none. Or no, we say none. So Shadow Sneak does 33 to 39, so I think if I Swords Dance twice, as they look to be banded, unfortunately that will cost me the game because my Life Orb KOs me now. So if I went for a Play Rough, I would have won, but I expected this to be Scarf, and my play was to Swords Dance twice, win a KO with Shadow Sneak and potentially win a KO with Galvantula. So unfortunately we take a loss there, and because of that I'm actually going to change on to Toxic on Chandelure, so I will be right back. So just briefly pointing out here, we have changed the Psychic on Chandelure to Toxic, and the reason behind that is it does offset like Roost builds, for example the Volcarona we just fought, but as well as that, in case my Toxic Spikes aren't down, it will double the Hex damage, and we can go through Substitute Infiltrator, so that is quite important. So we're going to pause there till we find the game. So we have a game against Mono Water, which definitely does seem to be a rain team. So this can be quite scary, especially with things like Dracovish threatening my whole team. Hopefully The likes of Mimikyu will be able to survive, but unfortunately Chandelure and Runerigus are quite a hindrance in this game. So we're going to open up a Dragapult, I think, and try and U-turn early. Into Runerigus. It doesn't really serve a purpose in this game, and we can at least attempt to remove this thing's water bubble. Now I value Toxic Spikes, I think, here more than Stealth Rocks, so I'm going to try to throw those down, but unfortunately this does allow the Pelipper to defog, but that does force them to defog away their own sticky webs, which is not in their favour. I think Dragapult is the play, and I will click Draco Meteor here. It should just pick up a KO on anything coming in. And we take care of that, which is quite nice because it does remove their ability to lay down more sticky webs in the late game if they choose to defog here, which they do indeed choose to do. Now unfortunately this kind of does invite in Cloyster, so I'm going to hard swap into Gengar. As they go into Seismitoad, we do not outspeed this. That is good to know. So I think Chandelure is fairly expendable in this game, as they go for Earth Power and seem to be a special attacking Seismitoad. So here Playdrift does a ton of damage on pretty much anything coming in, and into Shadow Sneak it should pick up a KO nicely. We are very worried about Dracovish in the endgame. Okay, give me this. So Mimikyu picking up some decent kills here as they go into Cloyster. Now this thing is extremely scary for my team, but I think with clever use of Shadow Sneaks we should be able to KO. So I'm going to Drain Punch here to just get back a bit of HP if at all possible on the Shell Smash. And we Shadow Sneak into this as they Ice Shard, get the crit, but I do believe that would have KO'd regardless, so not to worry there. I think Aegislash should be able to live, unless this is King's Rock. A Sacred Sword should pick up a KO here. Please don't be King's Rock. It is indeed King's Rock. Ooh, that's not looking good. That could unfortunately cost us the game, as I don't know if Shadow Sneak picks up a KO at this percentage, so we have to rely on this breaking through. Come on, Aegislash, break through. Nice. Aegislash came through from in the end, and it's looking like Shadow Sneak and Dazzling Gleam could potentially win the end game, depending on if one of these is Scarf or Band/Specs. So they go in hard into Keldeo, and we're going to get a bit of chip off here with Shadow Sneak as they go for a Scald, and they are leftovers, which makes me believe Dracovish is going to be Choice Scarf. Now let me just check for a second. Does Gengar KO these? I have a feeling it does not, unfortunately. Dracovish. We're Choice Scarf. With Dazzling Gleam. So that's nowhere near enough to KO it. So we kind of have to rely on Gengar here KOing the Keldeo with Dazzling Gleam, which it didn't KO, but thankfully it will after 2-hit KO, even after it Calm Mind. So we have to rely on this thing being Curse Bodied by my Curse Body in order to pick up a KO with Dragapult, as it exactly what happens. So that is so good for me, and the Hex should pick up a KO here. As it turns out, it wasn't actually Choice Scarf, it was probably Choice Band, so it turns out Dragapult would have won in the end regardless. So that was a nice close game, and we're going to pause there until we find the next one. So we have a game against Mono Ghost as well, and this is such a hard matchup for honestly both of us. We have to make great use of our Shadow Sneak and on Mimikyu and Aegislash to be able to win this game, I feel. So I think they open up with Cursula, and I'm going to try open up with Chandelure as they go into Gengar turn 1. Unfortunately this will let them pick up a KO on me regardless. Now I could go into Gengar. Unfortunately this makes me play my hand, and I have to, I think, use one of my Shadow Sneakers, unless this is not Choice Scarf, and it's hard to like risk it. Which I'm going to do. I'm going to risk it and go into my own Gengar and click Shadow Ball here. As we either win the 50-50 or that was not actually choice Scarf. So I believe I should live one Shadow Sneak. And I click Shadow Ball here to break the disguise, giving me a huge advantage in the late game. As they go for a Swords Dance as expected. So here I'm going to go into my Rune Regis and just get a bit of chip on them. As that did no damage to me. Nice. I'm going to try throw down a Toxic Spike here. Unfortunately we do faint, but this lets me get in my own Mimikyu now and click Shadow Sneak. If I do win the 50-50, it puts me in a great position as my disguise is intact for later in the game as they go into Corsola, wanting to burn me no doubt. So we'll go into Dragapult here and click Specs Hex. It should start picking up KOs, regardless of what they swap into. As they go into Chandelure and we get another KO, which is nice for me. Now unfortunately the Corsola is still a huge issue for me in the endgame, especially paired with the Mimikyu, who still has its Shadow Sneak available. So I do think I have to play this endgame quite well in order to win. If they are choice Scarf Dragapult, I believe my Shadow Sneaks can KO as well. I'm guessing that wasn't choice Scarf Gengar, either that or I got very lucky and won the 50-50. So they go in Dragapult here and possibly reveal to us if they are choice Scarf, which we don't know because I won here. We know they're not choice Scarf, but we're not sure what item they are, so it's very possible I'm winning a lot of 50-50s here. Which is just very lucky for me. I value Gengar still alive, I think, for Corsola, so I'm just going to click Hex here again. As they go to Scald me. Interesting, it seems they did not have any Ghost moves. So they have to go Mimikyu here, and I believe my play is to go into Aegislash. We value Dragapult alive at the very end to be able to click Hex against Corsola, and that did no damage whatsoever. So a Shadow Sneak here should pick up a KO, unless they go into Corsola, which they do, which lets me get in Gengar. Now with Gengar, I'm simply going to Trick here. I trick it into a Nightshade, and I guaranteed live at least one more. Or two more, sorry. Wow, that did some damage. Unfortunately, they do disable me, but that's not a worry, as I actually disabled them back. So they're forced to swap into Mimikyu here, or give me Corsola, which obviously is the better play. But unfortunately for them here, there's no way they can win, because the Life Orb chip will wear them down. And I actually end up disabling that too, so this is a free win here for me with Shadow Sneak, so GG. That was quite a close game. It doesn't seem like it because I had 3 mons left, but if left unchecked, Mimikyu could have easily swept my team, so I am happy that I won some of the potential 50-50s there. I don't know what item they were running, but it is nice to win those. So we're going to pause there until we find our next game. So we have another game against Mono fighting again, which can be an issue, given that we saw last time how much of trouble Urshifu can give the team. So we're going to try and keep my Aegislash alive for the Cold Barberry and the Wicked Blow. On top of that, we actually love Rune Regis in this game. Now unfortunately they are running Toxicroak, so our Toxic Spikes aren't as free as they could be in some matchups. But Rune Regis is still fantastic against the likes of Conkeldurr, even Cobalion at the start, so I expect them to want to open up a Cobalion, so I'm going to try open Chandelure. Hopefully they don't go Urshifu, as they do indeed open Cobalion, presumably trying to get the Stealth Rocks down as early as possible. And we'll just go for a Flamethrower. They unfortunately missed the T-Wave. That is very unfortunate for them, so we do pick up a KO nice and early there. Now Terrakion isn't much of an issue because we have Rune Regis. The main issue really is Urshifu. I'm not sure what Toxicroak can do, but it could be annoying as they go into Terrakion. So we'll always go Rune Regis here on the Stone Edge coming out, as they go for an Earthquake, and that does basically no damage. So I'm also throwing Stealth Rocks here just to get a bit of chip on the team as they swap around and go into Toxicroak, presumably wanting to go for a Dark Pulse here. And in this position, I feel like Chandelure is mostly expendable, so we will sack it. As they go for a Swords Dance, that could be quite scary. They could be Sucker Punch. It's exactly what they are. So this puts me in a pretty compromising position here, where Sucker Punch pretty much will get a KO on everything on my team. So unfortunately here I think I have to sack the Rune Regis to try and curse the Toxicroak, expecting them to maybe want to go for a Sucker Punch, though they could straight up attack me because they might be expecting a Will-O-Wisp to come out, which is exactly what happens. They go for the Poison Jab, and thankfully they do take some chip from my Rocky Helmet. So I'll throw Toxic Spikes down here in case they want to go for a Sucker Punch, which is exactly what they do go for, and they do indeed take more Curse Chip. So in this position they're forced to swap out, lest my Rocky Helmet and Curse knock them out. And they actually go for a Bullet Punch and let my Rune Regis stay alive. So I'm completely okay with that. So we got both their Toxic Spikes down, and they can no longer absorb them with Toxicroak, and my Rune Regis stayed alive to potentially come in and pass on their Wandering Spirit onto KingKrabz later in the game, which is fantastic for me. So Terrakion comes out here. In this position I don't see Dragapult doing too much, as it actually survives an Earthquake, so that is definitely scarfed. And here we can just click Hex and kind of pick up a KO because it is Specs. Now this kind of forces in Urshifu exactly, which does thankfully get the poison, and we'll click Hex again. That did so much damage. They go for the Wicked Blow. Now in this position, ooh, there's Salakberry. That is good to know. I don't think Shadow Sneak KOs at this percentage, and I want to keep that alive for the likes of Komodo, so I'm going to go in Aegislash. We will live a Wicked Blow thanks to my Cobra Berry, and we'll just click Sacred Sword here. Nice, so the Cobra Berry really coming in handy there. And in this position I can kind of just click King Shield on whatever comes in, as it is KingKrabz. So I'll click King Shield here on the presumably a knockoff coming out to lower its attack. And they end up forfeiting, which is nice for me because I could have gone into Rune Regis here and passed on a Wandering Spirit, which actually, it would remove their guts, but it wouldn't play too much of a role in this position. So we're going to pause there until we find our next game. So we have our next game, and it is against Mono Ghost again, which is definitely a scary matchup, but based on their looks, they probably only have one or two Shadow Sneakers in Mimikyu and Doublade. So I suppose the aim of the game here is to try and save my Mimikyu and Aegislash towards the end game to just start clicking Shadow Sneak. So we're going to open up Gengar and hope to get a KO immediately, though this will scout for Scarf on the Dragapult. So if we do lose Gengar this early, it can be an issue for us, because it is one of my best late game sweepers. Now on the Doublade I can always swap into Rune Regis. Actually they give me Dragapult, which reveals they are not Scarf, which is so fantastic for me as they take in Delmise. Now I don't know if Gengar when it KOs Delmise. They sometimes run Assault Vest, so I cannot take the risk here, and I think I swap into Rune Regis on what I expect to be a Shadow Claw coming out as they go for Earthquake. They did crit me, but it still did very little damage. Now unfortunately they will outspeed, but we'll try to get a Stealth Rock up here if possible, as they actually go into Alolan Marowak. Interesting, so we'll try Curse this in case it wants to Swords Dance. It goes for its own Stealth Rock, but that's okay because I'll now put this thing on a timer. And like, part of me wants to keep Rune Regis alive, but the other part of me wants to throw a Toxic Spikes down here. They go straight for a Poltergeist, and they will take chip from my Curse, which is pretty good for me in this position. So this kind of opens up Gengar to come back in and just get another KO with Shadow Ball. And the Stealth Rock will slowly chip them away. Nothing can really swap into this and not be at least 2 KO'd. If they want to give me Delmise, that would be fantastic, or want to give me the Disguise and Mimikyu, that would be even better. I think Gengar dies to a Shadow Sneak. We're just going to check that here. Mimikyu, Life Orb. Is that Life Orb? Shadow Sneak. So 252 Life Orb does 77 to 92. So there is a good chance after Stealth Rock. A 31% chance to win a KO after Stealth Rock. So that gives pretty good odds here as they take in Delmise. Now unfortunately if I do swap out the Gengar, it is less effective in the in-game because they potentially have their own Scarf and I'd have to win a 50-50, or their Shadow Sneakers can be a big issue for me. So I'm just going to click Shadow Ball here again and try pick up a KO. Yeah, that is definitely Assault Vest based on that damage. So here I think I just take in Chandelure and click Hex, which again picks up a KO. Short of them swapping into Mimikyu. I do have 2 Shadow Sneakers left, which is super important in the end game, but I believe they do as well with Doublade. It's getting to the position where they're going to have to give me their Disguise and Mimikyu, and I feel in the Mono Ghost Ditto, one of the most important things is not giving up your Mimikyu's Disguise first. So we click Hex here, I presume a Shadow Ball comes out, which will definitely want to KO me. Especially if it's Specs. Now unfortunately I can't really scout for this thing's item. So I'm going to have to give up one of my Shadow Sneakers, I think, in the next trade. So in this position, I believe Aegislash should be able to live 1, assuming they're not choice Specs, and the Iron Head into Shadow Ball will kill. So they go straight for a Shadow Ball. I think it's Scarf. I really think it's Scarf. Can Aegislash live is the question. Oops, my Aegislash is max HP. 250, yeah. Against a choice Scarf Gengar. Though it could be choice Specs. So it doesn't live the choice Specs. That's for sure. Choice Scarf. Oh. That should be 140 because we're in shield form right now. So we actually do live if it's choice Scarf. We die if it's choice Specs. Does a Shadow Sneak KO is the question. Some really awkward calcs I'm doing here. Shadow Sneak. And we are Adamant. So Adamant Shadow Sneak does 88 to 104 after Stealth Rock. Guaranteed 1 KO after Stealth Rock. Fantastic news for me. So I can come in here and just click Shadow Sneak. Now they could easily go into Doublade here, as they actually give me Gengar. Fantastic. Unfortunately, they do disable my Shadow Sneak, which can be annoying as they do take in Doublade, and presumably want to go for a Swords Dance. So that disable really puts me in an awkward position where they can Swords Dance in my face. That is not good. So I think I have to go into Mimikyu on the Swords Dance. And I will just Shadow Sneak them to do as much damage as possible. 22% does nothing. And unfortunately they're putting me in a position where they can KO me here with their own Shadow Sneak. I don't think my Shadow Sneak KOs. And they should be able to KO Dragapult, I believe. So we're running a lot of calcs here because I want to be sure. So +2 Shadow Sneak is absolutely going to win a KO. This puts me in a very bad position. I can try King Shield. If I haven't revealed King Shield yet, so they might think I'm banded. So hopefully they sneak into me and get an attack drop. Unfortunately, I don't have Swords Dance of my own, which is exactly what happens. So that's quite good, and here I have to Shadow Sneak myself, but I think I will get KO'd after this. Yeah, so unfortunately it's going to be game because they can just sneak into Sneak here. Unfortunate end game there, but that's how it plays out in Mono Ghost, so we're going to pause there until we find our next game. So we have another game against Mono Ghost. I suppose it's that time of year, people probably play Mono Ghost a lot. But here, they seem to be a slightly more offensive Mono Ghost with the likes of Poltegeist and potentially Choice Scarf Gengar. So this can be a difficult matchup for me. We're going to, I think, open up a Runa Regis and try get my Stealth Rocks down as early as possible, which would be fantastic for me. Though unfortunately, many things can KO me here. So the reason we want Stealth Rocks down is to be able to chip the Poltegeist to be able to remove its sash. They open up with Gengar. And I do believe Gengar won at KOs, so if it's Choice Scarf. As they did crit me, so unfortunately I'm not too sure if it's Scarf or Ban or Specs. So we'll take in my own Gengar here and click Shadow Ball. That is an unfortunate start for me because it does open up Poltergeist so much in the end game. As they go into Aegislash and activate their weakness policy. They are for sure Sneak. And they're probably a fast sneaker too, so I give them Chandelure here on the Sneak and try getting my own Mimikyu to sneak them back. So I am down 2, which is pretty much detrimental in a Mono Ghost Ditto because it's kind of a game of trades. It's really a 1-for-1. So unfortunately here, I cannot afford for Mimikyu's Disguise to be busted, but I need this thing to die. Palossand comes in. It can KO me, I believe, as they go for Scorching Sands, which lets me click Hex here, which should pick up a KO, as it is Specs. However, I'm still in a very awkward position. So they go into Poltergeist, and it looks like they actually give it to me, which is okay with me. That was one of the bigger threats to my team. I still think I can win with clever use of King's Shield and my own Shadow Sneaks, but it's not going to be easy. But the fact we do have Choice Scarf Gengar still alive is very, very helpful. So again here they go for a Sneak, I believe, which should KO me. And I will get in my own Aegislash here and just click Sneak back. I am slower, so hopefully my Shield form will block most of the damage. So I can win the endgame if I manage to break Mimikyu's Disguise and possibly win some speed ties. As it turns out, they're actually a slow Aegislash. I did win the trade, or win the 50-50 potentially, so that is good. I don't think one Shadow Sneak KOs me here, so I'm going to break their Disguise immediately, as they presumably go for a Swords Dance here. And I'm going to block them with the King Shield, just to lower their attack a stage, and then go for the Iron Head to pick up a KO. I should live the Shadow Claw because my defense is amazing, and the fact I get Mimikyu's Disguise is so big for me in the end game, because I still have 2 Sneakers alive, as well as my Shadow Ball Choice Scarf Gengar. Unfortunately, they haven't revealed to me what their Dragapult is, so that can be huge in the end game. But I think it's getting to the position where I can just get in Mimikyu and click Swords Dance into Shadow Sneak. So I click Sneak here to get as much damage off as possible. That did so much damage. They go for a Fire Blast and reveal that they are actually leftovers. So my Gengar guarantees outspeed, and I can click Shadow Ball here. They might click Sucker Punch, they don't, and they don't get a Cursed Body either. So this is looking fantastic for me in the end game. That is disrespectful. I'm going to KO you. Unless this is Assault Vest. Yeah, there's no way Palossand survives a Gengar. So this puts me in a fantastic position where I win thanks to the Scarf. So GG. Even if they took out Gengar first and disabled my Shadow Ball and the Palossand, I do believe Mimikyu would have been in a position where it wins the end game regardless. So that is going to be it for today for Mono Ghost. Hopefully you did enjoy. We actually saw a fair few ghosts on the ladder, but I suppose that makes sense, as I said, given the time of year it is. So if you did enjoy, definitely leave a like, subscribe, comment, all that kind of stuff helps me out immensely, and I really do appreciate it. And that is going to be the final showcase for this DLC until October 22nd, when the Crown Tundra comes out, and I'll be starting all over again. So I'm really looking forward to that. So if you do want to find out how the monotype meta has been affected, going to be impacted by that change, definitely subscribe. I'll be doing videos about like the new Pokemon, how it's going to affect the types, and obviously when they all come out, I'll be talking about the meta, how it's the bans that are going to come, I think might come, and how it's going to affect the meta. And of course, I'm going to be doing all 18 types all over again, with some hopefully new Pokemon in the team. So if you are interested in that, definitely check out my channel, subscribe, click the bell icon if it's there, just to get notifications for that. I'll leave the team link down below, as always. If you ever want to use this on ladder, feel free to. and as well as the Discord is linked down below. If you want to pass me some teams, just talk about Pokemon, get to know the community, definitely feel free to join. So that's going to be it for today. I hope you have a fantastic day. Take care.